Andromeda is now the biggest buzzword that exists in meta ads since really iOS 14 2.5 years ago, except iOS 14 actually mattered a lot more than Andromeda does. So in this video, I'll run through why Andromeda is overhyped, what you actually need to know, why there are so many videos on this. There's so many agencies running meta ads as well, saying that Andromeda is the reason why your ads aren't performing anymore. You need to completely change your structure. You need a Andromeda-friendly structure. It's just a lot of marketing jargon from marketing agencies to try to get clients to fear them into the fact that the reason why your ad account isn't working is because your agency hasn't changed their structure accordingly. So let's break it down. What is Andromeda? Well, all of the time, literally almost every day, Meta is making changes to how their ads serve within the platform. The reason why they are constantly tweaking their algorithm is because they want to maximize dollars in revenue per time spent on the account at a user level. And the way that they do that is they get you as an advertiser to spend more. There's two ways in which they can do that. They can either increase the amount of ad placements on the platform, which they're always trying to do. If anyone had Instagram 3 years ago versus now, 3 years ago, you'd get one ad every 7 posts. Now you get an ad every second post. Sometimes you get double ads as well. So there's a lot more inventory being placed. But number two is you increase CPMs. So you make it more expensive for advertisers to serve on the platform. Now, how do you do that without people just pulling back spend and not spending on the platform anymore? Well, you make sure there's an ROI. And so you make your ad placement mechanism better to drive more purchases out of consumers. And so that is why Meta is constantly doing updates. Now, when they do a big update, they give it a name and they do a proper press rollout. And the latest name is Andromeda. This is the latest big update that they've done. They've talked a little bit about the hardware changes that they've made in terms of training the machine learning models, etc., to be able to better serve ads across the platform. There's a lot of different small changes that they're optimizing for that hopefully allows a better ROI. One of them, for example, is that they have tried to decrease time to specificity of ads being served to a user based on a particular action taken. So, for example, if I click on a pet post, previously it might have taken a few hours before I started seeing pet ads. They've reduced that by 10x. And so now if you interact with a pet post, for example, you will start getting served ads for pet-related products within like 2 minutes. And the reasoning there is that if you can tighten the time to relevant ad, you will increase the likelihood of purchase outcomes. And so there's a bunch of stuff like that that's been implemented that should hopefully make the platform work better. It's unlikely that most people have really seen much of that improvement as of yet. And so the question becomes, how can we capitalize on it? What do we have to change? Is there really much important stuff? Everything that you have to do to be Andromeda friendly is stuff that you should have already been doing for the last 12 months. And so the first one is, and this is all also publicly recommended by Meta on top of this update, is that you should be optimizing for consolidation. And so you should have fewer campaigns, you should have broader audiences, and ideally you should have more Advantage Plus features turned on. I don't necessarily agree that you should have all the Advantage Plus features on. There's a lot of them that, quite frankly, aren't very good at all, and they can really mess up your creative and your copy. But generally speaking, consolidating on the platform, good idea. Why is it a good idea? We have tons of videos on this, but it's because conversion data accumulates at the campaign level. There is cross-campaign data being shared in Google, Facebook, TikTok, but not a lot. Most of the data learns at the individual campaign level so that you can introduce structure and have different products, categories, personas running in one ad account. That's why they do it like that. And so generally, consolidate, you should be doing that. If you have 20 campaigns running right now, probably not a great idea unless you're spending a couple $1 million a month. Number two is the big one you hear all the time now. You hear it in every piece of content. You hear it in every ad. Creative is the targeting. Now, what does this mean? It means that you shouldn't use interest targeting anymore. Most accounts, if you're using interest targeting, phase it out, go broad, unless you're a really small startup that needs to give signal indication to placements. That's number one. Number two is that when you're thinking through the creative design process, rather than taking a creative, and historically you would place it in the stage of the funnel in which you want to sit it at, instead you should just be thinking through the creative and where it's designed for in the funnel, and it will automatically serve that. And so up the top here, you have traditionally top funnel. These are people that have never seen your brand before, have no idea that even your product exists in the market. Middle of funnel, these are people that are generally brand aware. And then bottom of funnel, these are people that have purchased from you or are very, very close to purchasing from you. Now, the reality is that when you're designing creatives now, you should be thinking about, is this going to convert a top of funnel audience? And a lot of people, where they get creative design wrong, is people just aren't very good at making top of funnel ads. They're very good at making middle of funnel and bottom of funnel, getting their products, putting reviews, here's all the features, etc. But putting a static image with features of the product and serving that to cold audiences isn't very effective. And that's why most people struggle to scale. Making really good top of funnel assets is really important. Now, this has always been the case. Okay, so now it's just less structural in terms of you take a top of funnel ad, you don't necessarily have to put it in a top of funnel campaign. If you put it in just a broad campaign, Meta will figure out where to serve it. So you should have already been doing this if you're a good business. And so there's nothing really that you should be changing here. The important thing really just to note is that previously you would more so make a cold ad for a top of funnel audience and you would go and put it in a top of funnel campaign. You'd put heavy audience exclusions, you'd send it out into the abyss and it wouldn't perform well. And you'd go, that wasn't a good ad. Now there is the chance that you take that ad, you put it into a campaign that has less exclusions, it's a little bit more broad, it's more Andromeda friendly, and then it seems to do well. But the reality is that it's not serving to cold audiences, it's serving to middle to bottom of funnel because Meta's realized that that piece of content will work better there. And so you get a false feedback loop and you go, that creative was good. We put it in a cold campaign, it went, it performed well, let's do more like that. It actually wasn't a good ad. Meta just took your ad and served it down here because it thought it would perform better there. And so you arguably have to be a little bit better at structuring the account and a little bit better at creative design for specific audience types and a little bit better at data analytics to sift through and go, where did my ad actually go? Who did it serve to? What kind of conversions was it driving? The third one is, I'm going to call it testing discipline. And this is the one that you'll hear the most. And this is really the biggest takeaway that should actually change the way that you're approaching the ad account and creative moving forward. This is really the main thing that we've taken away from this update and that we've changed slightly. We've changed this in our approach with all of our clients' ad accounts, and we've changed our approach internally a little bit as well. But a lot of people are taking this to the extreme. They're going very aggressively in one direction. I wouldn't recommend doing that. This is instead, you were here, let's move here. You're not here and you're going all the way over here. What am I even talking about? I'm talking about how big is the swing that you're taking in variation of creative? The obvious example is in hook testing. And so a really good creative strategy, particularly for efficiency in a video shoot, is you record 10 hooks and you record 2 bodies. And now you have 20 unique ads that you can go and put in the account. And this will generally always outperform the opposite, which is you just do, let's say, 1 hook and 1 body, and so you get 1 ad. 20 ads will always outperform 1 ad, even if these 9 hook variations aren't as good as the primary, even if the second body isn't as good as this primary body, you'll still generally see better performance here because you've got more variation in the hooks that are serving to users, so it's going to hook more people into different assets. And you're going to increase your likelihood of getting a winning script within the ad that's going to perform really well and sit in the top 20% of ads. This has generally been the approach. I agree with this approach. However, with Andromeda, they have suggested that creative variety is more important than slight iterations. And so rather than doing 10 hooks, they're saying it would actually be better if you did, let's say, 5 hooks, maybe 1 body, but switched it up and did another 5 hooks and 1 body with a different avatar or a different creative medium entirely. By avatar, I mean, if it was a man in all of these ads, you switch to a woman in the ads instead. This would be more important. Now, once again, we kind of go back to the position of, wouldn't that have been the case before Andromeda? And I'd probably say yes. Like, if you have the ability to do 20 unique, completely different ads, rather than just changing hooks and changing bodies, that's always going to outperform doing 20 slight variations, no matter when it was that we were running meta ads. If you can run 20 unique ads with different people in the ads, with completely different scripts in different locations, with different value propositions, with different approaches, obviously that's going to outperform 10 slight variations of one ad. The reason why we do 20 slight variations of one ad is because it's an easy way to get a slight improvement in performance with very little effort. But now Meta's really pushing home that, hey, you should kind of go in this direction. And so we're going in that direction a little bit. And so where we normally previously, and this is actually a real example, where we would normally do 10 hooks and 3 bodies for one concept, and this writing is not good, now we have changed this and we're actually down to 2 to 3 hooks now. We're down to 1, maybe 2 bodies. There should be a V per concept. And then we're mixing up the concepts more. And so rather than having one concept for 30 ads, here we have 6. And so we need like 5 different concepts here. And we're prioritizing this for better performance. Now, the issue is that this is not the equivalent to this. And this is where people can get this wrong, is that they go, okay, well, instead of making a bunch of different hooks and bodies, now we'll just do more concepts, less variations. Perfect. But this takes like 3x more time. Writing 5 different complete unique concepts with different scripts takes, I would argue, 5x the amount of time as one. And that was the whole advantage of doing this much volume. The reason why we're switching in this direction is more so for spend distribution in the ad account. And so having all of your spend distribute across 30 different ads and Meta trying to figure out which one works best, according to the documentation from Meta, you are worse off doing this. You will get worse performance in the account than if you consolidate to less variations where spend doesn't have to get distributed so finely, but you can prioritize bigger swings. And I think that makes sense. I think that's probably always made sense, to be completely honest. But I think it's just more important now. It's really being emphasized by Meta. And so it's something that's telling us, okay, we should move slightly in that direction. We definitely shouldn't move too aggressively in that direction. I'll give you an example of what really aggressive would be. Let's say this is how you were normally structuring your video ads when you were building them. And a really aggressive change would be going to just 30 complete unique concepts with no hook variations, no body variations. This is now what we're introducing into the account. And the reason why that's really aggressive is just because the step change here in cost is enormous. This is probably going to be 10x more costly to do so. And so you're going to increase your cost of creative dramatically. And I doubt you're going to get a 10x improvement in performance to compensate for that. Are you going to get an improvement in performance? Yes. Is it going to be that much worth it for all of that additional time and cost? Probably not. And so that's why I would stay in a middle ground for now. You can test going all the way there, and we are actually testing this on one account at the moment, completely removing cool variations, going all the way to unique concept testing only, to see if it has any merit. But our internal hunch, based on all of the ad account management that we have today, is that we wouldn't swing that hard. And so what's the core takeaways? Anyone says your ad account isn't performing because of Andromeda, you're not Andromeda ready. It's not a huge change. There's really 3 things to be top of mind. Number 1, do you have a consolidated account? You should already have had a consolidated account like 12 months ago. But if you don't, really important that you do now. Number 2, creative is the targeting. You need to think through, where is this creative going to place within the ad account when you put it in the ad account. Big mistake people make is they just make a lot of bottom of funnel, middle of funnel ads. They throw them in the ad account. They realize why they can't grow new customer acquisition and why their acquisition is unprofitable. Your creative needs to be geared around users who have never seen you before. And then lastly, you need to have a little bit more testing discipline now, which is taking much bigger swings rather than heavy variant testing. Not to say heavy variant testing is dead, not to say testing different hooks isn't a good idea. It's a great idea. But testing 20 hooks might be a little bit overkill now, particularly just how many unique ads that is going into the account. Might want to consolidate down a little bit, take some bigger swings on different concepts, and increase creative diversity as well.